If you're new to solar, watch this before you connect anything.
Stick around and we'll get right to it.
Hey, welcome back guys, Jason, KM4ACK. Today we're going to walk through the basics of solar power. Now the first thing I want to start with is the different types of connectors that you may run into on solar panels. So it depends on what the solar panel is and what connector it's got on it. Let's take this little 20 watt guy right here. If you look right there on the edge, let's see if we can get the camera to focus. There is only a couple of USB ports. So this one, you're only going to plug a USB or a USB-C device into, and this would be a panel that you might use to charge your cell phone. Now in this particular case, everything you need is built into the panel, so it's safe to just plug your cell phone cable, USB-C cable, directly into this particular unit. But that's not true for every single panel out there, and that's why I want to look through several of these today. Another connector you might run into, and this one I really only see on a power film panel, but this is another style of connector that you might run into. And guys, keep in mind that they do make adapters most of the time to go from whatever type of connector you happen to have to whatever connector you happen to need. Let's see, in this particular case, here's the cable that I built for this. It came with all of this extra wire. This gives me the connector to connect to the one that you just saw on the panel itself. And then, as you can see, I've just got a basic power pole on the other side. Now, another connector that you're going to run into very often, this is pretty much the standard when it comes to solar panels, are these connectors right here. And these are called MC4 connectors. So this is pretty much the industry standard when it comes to solar. And one of the nice things about these, they have O-rings on them. So these will actually make a watertight seal when you get these connected together correctly. Now, while we're talking about MC4 connectors, I do want to bring up this little tool right here. Some of these connectors, like this one, has quick disconnects on it, so you can press in and then pull out on the other side. However, not all of these MC4 connectors have that quick disconnect, and that's where a tool like this will really come in handy. And if you dive deep enough into the solar game, you're probably going to want to pick up a set of MC4 tools as well, so you can crimp your own ends onto these cables. Now, let's take a look at a few more connectors that you might find on different types of devices. This one we're all familiar with. This is the power pole connector. This one is good for up to 30 amps, and it's just a red and black connector. Another one that you may run across is this one here. This one is called an XT60 connector. Just like the power poles, this one basically only goes in one way, and you don't have too much to worry about. This one is more common on power stations by some brands than pretty much anywhere else. We don't use these a lot in ham radio. Our standard is usually the power pole, but it's good to know what you're looking at so you know what type of connector you need. Another one that you will run across is the barrel connector. Now, these can come in a range of sizes, and this particular cable has several different plugs on one end, as you can see right there. So this is a 5.5 by 2.1 millimeter connector, and I'm not even sure of the size of this one. And this particular cable that came with one of my 100 watt panels even has a couple of adapters with it, so you can adapt this to be a different size. But it's good to know what kind of connector you're working with so that if you need to search for an adapter, you'll know exactly what you're looking for when you head over to Amazon. A shout out to Set Power, who's sponsoring today's video. Those guys build absolutely fabulous 12-volt refrigerators, which is just one of the things that I run with my batteries or my power stations, while I use solar to keep those recharged. The DT45 is the one that I keep in my truck. It's got two separate compartments, a smaller one and a larger one, and you can use these either as a freezer and a fridge, or you can use them both as a fridge or both as a freezer. This one pretty much lives in my truck full time. If that's something you're interested in, I'll leave a link down in the description below. Now, one last connector that I definitely need to mention before moving on is the SAE connector. And the reason I want to mention this one is you need to be very careful with SAE connectors. And that's because they can be wired either direction. So in this particular case, you'll see that the red is on this covered side and the black is on this side that's exposed. To me, that is the correct way to wire them. But if you look on Amazon, you can absolutely find these that are reversed. Now, another thing you want to know about your solar panel before you start connecting anything is exactly what is the full potential output of that panel. So sometimes that'll be called the open circuit voltage. So it may be a panel that they'll tell you nominally will put out 12 volts, but in all actuality, it actually puts out a much higher voltage. That might be 18 to 20 volts, but that's still the proper panel for charging a 12-volt battery. And we'll kind of cover that a little bit more in the solar charge controller portion of this video. But it's something that you need to look at, because when you're pairing up your panel and your device, whatever you're connecting that to, you need to make sure that the device you're connecting it to can take what you're trying to throw at it. And I'll give you a prime example of how I made a mistake recently, and thankfully I didn't let out the magic smoke. One of my power stations likes a high voltage to recharge. So I had a couple of panels wired in series. We'll get into parallel and series wiring maybe in another video. But with the series wiring, it was around 51 volts, give or take. And like I said, one of my power stations loves that wiring. However, I connected those two panels wired in series to my RV's solar on the side port. Well, it didn't like that at all. It was not expecting that much voltage, and thankfully my charge controller caught it and shut down before I damaged anything in the system. So you definitely want to double check exactly how much your panel is putting out and what your device expects, because you don't want to feed too much voltage or too much amperage into something that's not expecting it. Now, depending on the panel that you're looking at, those details may be right on the panel itself, as you can see from this small sticker that's on the back of the Zoop 110 watt panel. However, other panels, let's say this power film panel right here, it does not have those specs printed on it anywhere. So sometimes you've got to go look at the manufacturer's website and go back and find a data sheet for whichever particular panel you're going to use, and the same thing will apply to charge controllers. Now, speaking of charge controllers, this is a device that is going to take whatever your panel gives it and convert that to whatever the battery needs. Now, the charge controller is actually responsible for multiple different things. I'm going to grab my notes here so I don't miss anything. But it manages your charging voltage, it manages your charging current. A lot of these will manage your battery chemistry. So this one here, I believe, will do lithium iron phosphate as well as AGM, and that is selectable in the menu of it. And a lot of your charge controllers, even those really inexpensive ones that are in the $20 to $25 range that you'll find on Amazon, are capable of working with different battery chemistries. But when you're choosing a charge controller, make sure it's rated for the battery chemistry that you're actually working with. A charge controller will usually handle the charging stages if that's something your battery requires, and then it will typically protect you from overcharging a battery as well. Now, again, that depends on the battery itself, because with the newer lithium iron phosphate batteries, you don't have to worry as much about overcharging per the charge controller, because those have a battery management system built into the batteries most of the time that will protect you from overcharging it as well. Now, while we're on the topic of solar charge controllers, you may need this device and you may not. Some of the power stations that are out there today, you absolutely don't need to put an external one on it because it has an internal solar charge controller. Now, when you start looking at these, again, depending on which charge controller you're looking at, it's going to have some basic connections to it. So in this case, right here on the bottom, you'll see that this is for the solar panel. We've got the battery that we would connect right here. And then on this side, we've got two load ports. So it's easy enough to hook up. You're going to take your solar panel. You may need an adapter if you've got MC4s. In this case, we need to be going to power pole. So you've got to convert from that MC4 connector to this power pole. Then you would come off of the battery side, connect that to your battery, and that would get your battery charging. If you wanted to say run a radio or a lamp or something else off of this side that would all run from 12 volts, well, you could charge it, or you could run those if you plugged them into this side. A lot of charge controllers have all three of these connections, your battery, your solar, and your load side. Some of them you will run into do not have that load side to it, so they'll just have a solar panel and a battery input. Now, one of the things that I like to do is pull a spec sheet for the devices that I intend to purchase. This spec sheet that you're looking here on screen is from one particular solar charge controller. You can see right at the top that it's designed for a 12 or 24 volt system, and it has auto switching to detect that automatically. You'll see that the maximum solar input is 100 volts. But keep in mind, look right down there at the below that where it says max solar panel system input power is 450 watts for 12 volts or 900 watts for a 24 volt system. And those 12 and 24 volt is talking about your actual battery system, not your solar panel. Now, one word of caution for you: if you're just working with a battery, typically speaking, you do not want to connect your solar panel direct to the battery and not use a solar charge controller. Unless that battery is specifically designed to handle that, you're going to be throwing too much voltage at that battery most of the time. And remember, that's where our charge controller comes in. It's going to take that 18 or 20 volts that your panel might be throwing out, and it's going to regulate that down to exactly what the battery needs, depending on the chemistry type that you chose inside the solar charge controller when you set it up. So let's take a look at a couple of very simple setups for solar. What you're going to see here is we've got the solar panel. This is the wire coming off of that. That wire is going into the solar side on the solar charge controller, and then the battery is connected to the battery side. So this setup, given enough time, will charge that 3 amp hour battery without any issues whatsoever. Now let's take a look at one more example here of charging. This particular device, this is the AFRY Nano 100. It has a built-in solar charge controller internally to it, so we don't need to worry about having the external. However, we're limited to 100 watts on this. So what we've got here is this 110 watt panel. Now, you may be thinking, well, Jason, you just said it was 100 and now you're feeding 110 into it. That's okay, because the solar charge controller is going to regulate that information down. It'll only charge at 100 watts, but we're okay by feeding just a little bit more into it. So we're simply going to take the MC4 connectors on this side, and we're going to plug those up to the solar panel itself. So positive to positive and negative to negative is the way to go here. Now, for this particular battery, they include this little adapter for you in the packaging. It has a barrel connector port on the back side, and it's got USB-C on the other side of it. Hopefully that shows up on camera for you guys. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to find the barrel port on the back of this that I need for this particular adapter, and I'm going to plug that in. Now we're going to use the USB-C cable that's built into that Nano and just connect it right to that particular adapter. And then I'm not sure if you guys are going to be able to see that on camera or not, but over here on this side, it's showing me that right now I'm getting about 41 watts, and it's going to take 34 minutes to charge this battery that's at 78%. That wattage will continue to climb as that internal solar charge controller sorts everything out. It'll keep ramping up that charge. If you found today's information helpful, be sure to give us a thumbs up before you head off. We will see you guys on the next one. Until then, 7-3.